Hi everybody, hope you're keeping well under lockdown in these difficult times, and I'm sure you're very eager to get back to West Dean and get on with your clock restoration course with Malcolm. In the meantime, Malcolm asked if I could think of anything to help with your inspiration and keep you motivated. So I thought of something simple as hand tools. That clonk in the background is an electric clock, by the way, so you have to ignore that. Yeah, very simple, but important at the same time because you're using them every day, working on clocks. They've got to feel right in the hand. So I just thought, maybe what do I look for in simple hand tools? Top 5. Why have I got the ones that I've got? What do I like about them? Features you might want to look out for. If you haven't already got yourself some tools like that, or you want to buy some more, thought it might be helpful. So we'll get on with it and have a look. So these are the 5 hand tools that I've chosen. Some of these are doubled up, there's more than 5 here, but it's difficult to narrow it down. Probably the most used thing I think I use every day, day to day, is pliers. These I've had since my time when I was at West Dean, picked them up second hand, which is where I think you can really get some great tools, not only just for cost, but I don't know, pliers today, they're all stiff. These are great because they just always fall open. They're really free in your hand, and I like that. There's nothing worse than some pliers. You go to use them, you've got to open them first, physically, and they're stiff. Personally, I don't like plastic handles all that much either. I don't know what it is. These just feel great. These would have had a sliding steel ring on the outside before and spring loaded, which has been taken off. I didn't take them off. This is how I bought them, and they're great. And also the ends have been filed and they look really mangled and not very good, what you would look for in pliers, I suppose. But the reason I like these, particularly for taking pins off hands from dials, is that they're nice and smooth everywhere. In fact, with all my pliers, I tend to grind off or file off the sharp edges. You shouldn't ever slip, but you never know. If you're taking a pin, you only have to slip a little bit and just catch. And if the pliers are sharp, particularly a matted dial or a painted dial, you're going to scratch it. Obviously, in an ideal world, you never want to slip and you never want to touch a dial with pliers, even these smooth ones, but you stand a better chance of coming away unscathed and no damage, if they're nice and smooth and it just rubs against the dial a little bit. And then these are really odd, but actually, as I say, I've had these for 25-30 years. They're just great because I don't know if you can see, I don't know if anyone else has ever got any like this, but the little notch sort of just sits in there and it rests, and it makes getting them, they don't slip, up or down. It sits in there. Don't know if you can see that. And pins on dials can be really tricky sometimes, especially if they're cut short, which they should be. So yeah, pliers have a really nice pay. You can never have enough. In fact, I've got quite a few pairs of pliers because they all have different uses. Sometimes those are too big for things. If I can look in this drawer here, I've probably got 20 pliers, and I probably use all of them. The Lindstroms, which I think you can still get today, these are very good for lighter jobs, smaller clocks, small pins. You really want the size of pliers for the size of the pin. And again, if we come over here, you can probably see, I've rounded off. I don't like any sharp edges. Keep them nice and smooth. Bigger ones for getting really awkward, tough pins out. These are great, these Morn ones. You can see the jaws go together parallel. They're another good one for getting pins out of dials and plates and things like that. So yeah, pliers. And then if we go back to pliers, related, I'm talking about pins, cutters. You know, you need to snip pins off. And again, you want a pair that feel just really nice in the hand. These are, again, are loose, always just fall open when you want them to. Close them easily. These old ones, if you buy second-hand ones, I think the steel is better. And they might be damaged. I wouldn't ever be worried about rusty or buying second-hand ones that look a bit beaten up, because you can always clean them up and do a lot with them, and dress these and keep them all short. They're just comfy in the hand, you know. You don't need, sometimes you need a big pair of cutters, nothing massive, but we shouldn't be cutting huge pins. Just fit in the hand. Again, if I pick this clock up, you know, you can just, nice and smooth, and just put it against it. Just cut it off. So, pliers, cutters, they're, you know, day-to-day things I use every single day. Screwdrivers. So screwdrivers, just like pliers, you're going to want different sizes for different jobs, but they don't have to be too big, as in long screwdrivers. Sometimes if a screw is really stubborn, someone's done it, over-tightened it, done it up too tight, you know, having a long screwdriver gives you that more twisting force. You can really get it out, but they shouldn't ever be that tight in clocks, really. So something this kind of size. What's important is that the screwdriver you use is a good fit in the screw that you're taking out, obviously. And you can see this has got quite a taper on it, narrows down to a point. Same with this one, which is a little bit wider. These two I use probably the most often, taking clocks apart, putting them back together. I think they're actually gunsmiths screwdrivers. They're great because they don't roll off the bench. Not having round handles, screwdrivers tend to run away, roll away from you, whereas these ones don't. And you can see, probably compared to a modern screwdriver, quite a taper, narrows down to a point, and that's because the old screws, they're not, the slots in them, you know, they're not parallel all the way down. They do tend to get narrow towards the bottom. So as I say, it's really important. I'm trying to do this looking through at my camera lens, so it doesn't feel all that natural, but you know, as you push it in, you know, they lock in quite tight the more forward pressure you put in, because like pliers not slipping, which I've got a thing about, you don't want screwdrivers slipping, and you know, you can slip out, slide across the plate, and so, well, again, none of these have got very sharp corners. I take the corners off. Not as easy with pliers, but better. So yeah, you can see, push that in. There's no slop in that at all. Tiny little bit, and that's the size that I would use. Overhangs a little bit. I can probably use this one as well. Let's see. Yeah, see, that locks in as well nicely. It's right down at the bottom of the slot. So that's screwdrivers, pliers, cutters, hammers. And obviously we don't go hitting clocks a lot, if ever, with hammers, but you know, you do use them a surprising amount, tapping pins in, tapping pins out. Trying to think now, but yeah, you need a nice hammer. Again, this one's probably quite old. This is quite a light hammer compared to this one, this Stanley one, which is, what does that say, £1/4. So yeah, sometimes it's not always an advantage to use a really light hammer, because you might end up just, if you're trying to get a pin out of a brass plate and you're using a drift, a lighter one, you end up hitting it several times, whereas with one a little bit bigger, heavier, you can just hit it once and it comes out. Knocking bushes in, hammers, of course, that's another thing. We tap the bushes in from the inside, which is why you want a really nice, keep the face polished so it doesn't get chewed and marked up. So again, if you do end up hitting where you shouldn't, you're tapping a bush in, it doesn't leave any marks. And of course, sometimes if you're making parts and doing things, you need that's a round end, a peening end, rivets or big bushes over and things. Again, nice and polished. That's slightly different. Getting in places. So hammers, not expensive, but choose one that, in a shop or wherever, when you pick it up, it feels comfortable in the hand, you like the weight of it, and it's good steel. Tweezers, they're something that we use pretty much every time we take a clock apart or put it back together. And these are brass ones. I always used to use steel when I first started. And if you're working on balances, very small things, sometimes you do need a steel pair of tweezers. So, something like this, with a really fine point, so you can pick up something. But for general clocks and day-to-day stuff, I like these ones. And again, just I think being brass, they're a little bit kinder, a bit softer. If you go scratching, touching against things, don't need to be steel. So why use steel ones? These are fine for picking up pins and picking things up to placing clocks if you're going around. I think these are Swiss ones, Bourgeon or DuPont, isn't it? Dumont, sorry, always used to make the best ones. It was worth buying a quality pair of tweezers. Pin vices. I was thinking of doing vices, but it doesn't really come under hand tools, does it? Maybe I'll do vices. If this one's any good, I'll do vices, because I'm quite into my vices. But hand vices like this, or pin vices, again, something that when I was thinking about this to do this little video, I was thinking, yeah, I use these pretty much every time, even if it's just putting the pins in, because all the pins that I cut, like that pin you saw me cut earlier, I would round that off the ends afterwards, and I would just do it by hand, by popping the pin in there, doing it up, and with a file dressing it. These you can still get, these Eclipse ones. The only thing when you buy a new one is that they tend to be really stiff, and they just take a while to loosen up. So again, if you can find one in a second-hand store online, or eBay or something, as long as those jaws are quite good and they close up. These come in all kinds of different sizes. Sometimes that one's too big. They size these Eclipse, don't they? What's it called? That's called a number 3 and number 122. doesn't really relate to each other, but sometimes you just want some smaller ones. But sometimes you don't want to grip round things. You know, you want to grip something flat. And these are old little hand vices are fantastic. I use this a lot. I hold hands with these sometimes when I'm bluing them, or you're just doing some repairs, and you just need that bit more maneuverability. You know, putting it in a vise on a bench, fixed bench vise, doesn't give you enough movement if whatever you're doing. And you know, this is an old one. Eclipse do a version like this, slightly modern as well. If you can't find one of these, well worth having. And again, don't be afraid of dressing it up and doing things if you want to do it. So that's pin vise, hand vise, some tweezers, pliers, cutters, screwdrivers, hammers. I mean, there's not a lot a clockmaker can't do. Obviously this doesn't cover everything, you need more than this, but the basic ones, I think this is what you'd want to equip yourself. You know, with this you could take a clock apart, do a very simple job on it, and get it back together again. Obviously I haven't got files here or things like that, but hopefully this is a bit helpful, gives you an insight. Get trawling, I don't know, eBay, second-hand shops, penny farthing tools he used to do, hand tools, I don't know if he still does. And just get some tools, because these I've probably had, not those, you know, but these I've had over 20 years, and they've taken hundreds and hundreds of clocks apart, you know. And if I thought I almost lost these once a couple of years ago. I left them behind at a customer's house, but I didn't, and yeah, I was really disappointed, because you just get attached to a hand tool like this that you're using a lot all the time. So you know, pick one to begin with, good, that you really like, you think you're going to get on with, and you know, you could have it for 30, 40, 50 years, whatever, you know, see you out. They become like your little friends. So take care, guys, and I'll try and do another one of these, think of something else. Thanks.